Alright, so this certainly feels weird. This is the first proper video I've made in a long time, because I'm worried I look a little bit different now when I talk. I've talked about this other places. I'm not going to get into it here. But I've decided I don't care if I look weird. So, you know. And frankly, already, I've only set up my light and got my camera going, which I didn't remember all the steps to. That was kind of weird in and of itself. But, I already feel really good. This is something I've been missing a lot, so, you know, expect more of this in the near future. That said, I know I'm late to this party, but I want to talk about the Book of Bill. I really love this. I have the journal, obviously, and I have the what was it called? The supplementary book. I can't remember what it's called. Something Mysteries or something. I have both of those. I've been through them multiple times. I like them. This book fascinated me more than any other piece of Gravity Falls supplemental material, though. I think this book is genuinely great. Not that those other books weren't also good. Is it Lost Mysteries? Sorry, I'm still dwelling on that. Not that those other books weren't good. Don't get me wrong. But this, I think, is a genuinely good book, even beyond its value to the fandom, if that makes sense. Don't get me wrong, I think it has way more value to the Gravity Falls fandom, but there's stuff in here that is genuinely interesting, and I think could actually be a really solid gateway for adults with kids to get into Gravity Falls and enjoy it themselves, now, as a starting point. I'm sure you've seen people out there saying that this book is a book for adults. It is definitely a book which aimed to grow up with the existing fandom. And they're right. End of the day, there's not a ton in here that goes too far beyond the kind of imagery we saw in the show, but there is a bit. But mostly it's the themes and the subject matter that really kind of push it over that edge. I'm not going to dwell too much on this. I know I'm really late, and I'm sure anyone who is still interested in this enough to watch the video has already read the book. But I still want to try to avoid spoilers if I can. Specific ones. I don't know how much I can, though, and talk about what I want to. Because I'm working off an outline like I usually do. I didn't actually script this out specifically. And I think I'm settling on there are going to be spoilers in here as to specific plot points. Because this book does have a plot. I'm just going to keep some of the broader details hidden, because I feel like a lot of the enjoyment of reading this is in the nuance. It's a beautiful book. Like, you can kind of see it here with the way my lighting is set up. Like, it looks dank and gross and dirty. And there's journal pages in here. Like, there's a whole section of it that's, like, can I find it right away? That's lost to journal pages. Yeah, here, the missing journal pages, where Ford talks about his specific time working with Bill. It's so good. I'm looking to make sure it's in frame. It's so good. This section was the best part. But I'll get to that in a second. And I do have some pictures I took of the pages to put up here for reference to some of this stuff. But at first it was just fun. It was just fun reading this. There's a warning here from, well, it was from Ford, right? Yeah, from Ford. Discussing what this is. It's the Book of Bill, created by Forces Unknown, printed on stitched together human brain matter, which is gross. He warns that this is a conduit through which Bill, who is not dead, because this is set after the events of Gravity Falls, the modern part of this. This is a conduit by which he is trying to return to our realm. He warns you not to read on, because doing so would constitute making a deal with Bill, which could allow him to escape where he is now and return. And his warning is not actually part of the book as Bill conceived it. It's taped in there. Like, not literally. I kind of wish they had done that. I kind of wish they had gone that hog wild with the design, and maybe there will be an edition someday that does, where there was like some blank like insert pages like they do sometimes here, where they had actually like taped other pages on there to look like it was actually what it's presenting itself to be here. I think that would have been freaking cool. But it starts out as that kind of thing. It's more of a game book than an actual narrative, where there's entire sections that are like, they're formatted like a game book, where Bill is just stringing you along from one page to the next with different high engagement activities and passages, sweeping you along to the later sections, which are what he really wants you to get to, because those are the meaty parts that are going to potentially draw you in and get you to make a deal with it. Like properly. There's even a section where Bill has you pick a number, claiming he can guess how you're going to die, and honestly, number 14, the one I got, doesn't seem too far off. There are even sections in here where you're prompted to solve puzzles. I didn't, because I didn't want to write in my book, and that ended up being the correct answer. The fun of the early sections of this book does come, though, specifically from that faux engagement between you and the author. There is an interaction building here, a relationship building, and the fun comes from that. It's an interactive experience, even just to the extent that it is formatted as if the author is specifically talking to you. But then we get to sections about Bill's history, and there's been little bits dropped here and there throughout the entire thing about Bill and his personality and his history. Things where it's so well written. Like, he's obviously lying multiple places all throughout this, like just all over the place. But it's easy to at least glean areas where it seems like his lies are deflecting from an answer that he doesn't want to actually give an honest answer to, or where he lets slip in an actual insecurity of his, for example. And so, reading between the lines of these sections, you get a really strong idea of the kind of person Bill is. And he comes across as very insecure, very desperate, and just trying to mask over that with his regular persona. Then we get to the narrative section, which gives a heavily Bill-biased summary of his personal history, because it's written by him in character, like it's written in character as him, obviously. But it feels like most of this was at least, like, honest in the sequence of events. He met his crew. They did a bunch of horrible interdimensional crime stuff, but then their reality they were existing in started to fall apart. He wanted a way out for them. He found Earth with people on it who were open to potentially making way for him to enter our reality. With the only real obstacle in the way being Time Baby, his clashes with whom was what actually led to the death of the dinosaurs, which I thought was really funny. And we are told of events which explain stuff from the show that was always kind of left hanging. Bill's interactions, for example, were limited after he met a shaman in ancient Gravity Falls, who enspelled him to weaken his ability to interact on our realm, and that interaction was the source of the prophecy which eventually defeats him. Kind of. He then goes on to try to find significant human interaction that will get him what he wants in several places. Ancient Egypt is one that really stuck out to me because they did a little bit of an Ancient Aliens parody here. But it details how he came back to America during revolutionary times and makes it clear that he tried to form a relationship with the budding American government, and that's how people kind of knew about him. People with like a higher degree of knowledge about the goings on in the world kind of knew about him in America from that point forward, because he had been open with a lot of people from that time period. In fact, the reason why the all-seeing eye is on the dollar is because they were specifically trying to appease Bill after they pissed him off. And this section goes on for a while. We go through some different eras and see like how he interacted with the nuclear arms race, for example. Stuff that I really like in particular, because Gravity Falls, with its focus on mystery spots and cryptids in the woods and tourist traps and stuff, is very American mythology. It's very oriented around very American mythology. Like USA American. But all of that was, of course, leading up to him meeting Ford. And while I have other sections of the book that I like better, like, for example, there's a section on dreams where we get some insight into what each of the characters on that symbol wheel dream about. My favorite character, I think, having the most interesting of all of them. And there's a section on abnormalities that come from other dimensions that I thought was really cool because it referenced a whole bunch of, like, internet horror and creepypasta stuff, which I'm a huge fan of. While I like those sections better personally, this section here, the Lost Journal pages, is the best section of the book. This is where it really starts to form a narrative. It's not particularly long, but it is very engrossing and very interesting and very insightful for fans of the show, for sure. And this is where those mature themes really come in, because up to this point, the creepy and weird stuff in here is creepy and weird, again, maybe a step or two above the ways that Gravity Falls itself was creepy and weird. It's not that intense. But this section here, told from Ford's point of view, very much paints their relationship as like a courtship, a romantic relationship, a very manipulative and toxic and abusive one on Bill's side, but one which Ford also takes responsibility for, because in a weird way it was the kind of thing he was seeking. It involved Bill giving him a lot of the validation that he had looked for his entire life. And frankly, in areas it was hard to read about. Once Ford realizes what Bill is and what he's trying to do, there's a section where, using Ford's body, Bill tries to get back into the portal room and severely injures Ford. Like there's blood on the pages and his hands are left bloody and raw. That, the way it was written, it came across like a partner hitting their partner. There was a whole section about how Bill tried to ruin Ford's life for effectively leaving him. And it ends on a section where Ford talks about how he's been able to move on and heal from everything that happened by finding what he really wants, a family that loves him. And we get some actual post-show insight and interaction with the Gravity Falls main cast. The kids are back in Gravity Falls for another summer. They're 13 now. Stan is recovered from everything that happened to him fully. And the kids are reading this book without being influenced by Bill, leading to Ford realizing that part of the reason why he was influenced by Bill and why he was scared that they would be is because he couldn't admit to himself that he wanted this to some degree. He wanted what Bill was trying to sell to him. It's a realization that he almost comes to earlier in the Lost Journal pages, where he is hesitant to ask for help from Stan because he is worried about admitting that he could be so wrong. And realizing this, Stan and Dipper and Mabel, I'm tearing up a little bit. I teared up a little bit reading it. They put their own statements of resistance to Bill and in solidarity, and their assurance that they will stand with Ford and they'll stand against Bill regardless of what happens. They put that in here, and they cast it as sort of a ward against Bill returning in this manner, and it works. Bill feels his connection, his lingering connection with Ford, fade and disappear. And then we get some insight into what happened to him. That axolotl, which you guys knew about and I didn't, when I made that one terrible Gravity Falls theory a while ago. It bested Bill. It trapped him in essentially a rehabilitation facility, what prison should be but isn't, where he's forced to go through karmic therapy. And he swears that it's not working, and he swears that he'll get free, but I really get the sense that the intention here is to illustrate that he's someone who, at this point, the rehabilitation is not working for him because he's still at the stage where he doesn't want it to. He wants to go back to the way things were, despite knowing that they don't work for him. And I think the intention is to say that even somebody like Bill, who is a piece of crap, which, I mean, that's a really, really light way of putting it, frankly. But even somebody like him, once he accepts help can change for the better. I think that's where the story is going at this point. And I like that. I like redemption stories, even for terrible people, because they reinforce the idea that real people, not just characters, but real people deserve the chance to change. This book felt really genuine to me. Like it was using the story of Gravity Falls as a conduit, much the way Bill is trying to use the book as a conduit, to introduce people to topics that maybe they haven't encountered yet in their real life, or they have, but they aren't too deep in, and to help them see things for what they are. Which is so weird, because this is a book, it has codes in it, it's a Gravity Falls book, of course it has codes in it. It's about a lying protagonist, as Bill is very much the protagonist of this book, and yet is written to open people's eyes to the truth of situations. I think that's where the real brilliance of it lies. It also felt weirdly topical. Like there's stuff in here about life and death and morality that it's written by Bill, so it's all his bullshit perspective, but in kind of the inversing of that, you can see a pretty genuine and I think poignant take that being rewarded for our morality isn't the point, and we have to make our own meaning in life and just do the best we can to be the best we can as much as we can. I like that. That's mostly how I stand on things. There's even a section where Bill, of all people, warns you to avoid agreeing to things without reading the fine print. It's to preface him asserting that there's no fine print to look out for in this book. That's what the setup was. He was trying to convince us of his intentions by admitting that some people don't have our best interests at heart. But right now, man, the way things are going, the way the American administration is looking, for example, any warning to be more mindful of the truth of a situation, I think, is kind of a big deal. It's important. It's important. It's an important thing for us to be considering on a day-to-day basis. Perhaps most topical and relevant, though, of all, is the revelation of where Bill's power really comes from. That being the attention on him, which feels super relevant because there are so many people these days, internet personalities, conspiracy theorists, billionaires, politicians, who do these morally ambiguous things in part because they just want to be the specialist boy and have everybody's eyes on them, and their power comes from how many people they're able to rope into that. Listen, this book is amazing. It's one of my favorite things I've read in a long time. I don't read as much as I used to. It's my favorite thing that I've read in a long time. Pick it up if you haven't. I will say, though, this is my last little bit about it. I personally didn't really care much about the code breaking stuff in here. There's ciphers and there's codes throughout. But just like with the show, I didn't really care about working through that stuff myself. It's fun to code break that kind of stuff. I did decipher a couple of them myself. But for the most part, I've been content to go online and read where other people have deciphered them and just read through what's there. It's about what you'd expect from the code breaking in the show itself. It's on par with that. Like, that might be the only part of this book that I didn't myself personally particularly care for. But, like, it doesn't take away from the book that you don't really care that that stuff's there, because it's not getting in the way of anything. It's not like something that's going to ruin something else that's in here. Like, it's entirely innocuous. I'm going to get roasted. Absolutely roasted for not liking the codes in this, aren't I? That's fine, whatever. Engagement's engagement. All of that said, though, guys, what did you think of the Book of Bill, if you've read it? I'm expecting to hear some really great things. I am back. Like, actually back now. For real this time, I promise. I'm going to be dropping probably one video a week for now until I get back in the groove of things, which means it's going to be slow going, because I know I have many review series already ongoing. I'm probably going to focus on DuckTales, because it's a pretty short show. Get through that. I'm going to do my Steven Revisaverse Obviously, I'm gonna keep up with that too, and Steven Universe Comics, and then probably also my 2 cents here and there. That's what we're gonna be doing for now. I am also still editing through and uploading old footage of my friends and I playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's not particularly good, but if you guys like actual play content, that might be something worth checking out for you guys. I'm not 100% sure about video game content yet. There's a couple things that are potentially getting in the way of that, but I hope to get back into it. I'd really like to finish Tears of the Kingdom at some point, so I can actually start looking at spoilers for it, as I am still unspoiled about the game. In the meantime, though, guys, as per usual, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.